The email hit my inbox like a punch to the gut. Academic misconduct hearing Emma Carter, scheduled for Friday. My heart stopped, the dorm room spinning as I stared at my laptop screen. Sophie, my roommate, sat across from me, her hazel eyes locked on her own computer, oblivious to the bomb she just detonated in my life. We'd been roommates for 2 years at UCLA, sharing late-night ramen and whispered secrets in this tiny poster-plastered dorm. Sophie, a communications major with a knack for uncovering truths, was my opposite, methodical, principled, always chasing facts like they were her religion. Me? I was Emma, the art history major who skated by on charm and last-minute miracles, cutting corners when deadlines loomed. But this time my miracle was a plagiarized paper, and Sophie, my best friend, had turned me in. I slammed my laptop shut, the sound slicing through the quiet. You reported me? My voice cracked, raw with disbelief. Sophie's fingers froze on her keyboard, her shoulders tensing, but she didn't look up. I had to, she said softly, her tone steady but laced with something heavier. Guilt, maybe? You copied that paper, Emma. I saw the source files on your drive when we were working on that group project. It wasn't fair. Fair. I laughed, bitter and sharp. You're my roommate. My friend. You could have talked to me soft, not gone straight to the dean. My chest burned, a mix of shame and fury. I'd always known Sophie was a stickler for rules, but this felt like betrayal wrapped in righteousness. She finally met my eyes, her gaze unwavering but soft, like she was trying to reach me through the storm. I did try to talk to you, she said. Last week when I asked about your paper. You laughed it off, said you borrowed some ideas. I couldn't let it slide, Emma. Not when it's about integrity. Integrity. The word stung, a reminder of every shortcut I'd taken, every lie I'd told myself to justify it. I wanted to scream that she didn't understand, that I was drowning in coursework, that I wasn't like her, perfect, poised Sophie who always had her shit together. But the words caught in my throat because deep down I knew she was right. And that made it worse. I stood grabbing my jacket. I need air, I muttered, storming out before she could respond. The cool Los Angeles evening hit me as I stepped onto the quad, the campus buzzing with students who had no idea my world was crumbling. I cheated, sure, but it was one paper. One mistake. Did it really warrant Sophie tearing us apart? As I wandered past the library, memories of our late-night study sessions flooded back. Sophie quizzing me on Renaissance painters, her laugh lighting up the room when I butchered pronunciations. She'd always been there, steady and warm, her presence a quiet anchor in my chaotic life. So why did she do this? Why didn't she just call me out herself instead of dragging the university into it? I sank onto a bench, my phone buzzing with a text from her. Can we talk? I didn't want this to happen. I stared at the words, my thumb hovering over the reply button. Part of me wanted to ignore her, to let the hurt fester. But another part, a quieter, scarier part, ached at the thought of losing her. Not just as a roommate, but as something more, something I'd never let myself name. The hearing was in 3 days. 3 days to figure out how to face the consequences and worse, how to face Sophie. I didn't know if I could forgive her, but as I sat there, the night air cold against my skin, I realized one thing. I wasn't ready to let her go. The next morning I avoided the dorm, hiding out in a campus cafe with overpriced lattes and too loud music. My sketchbook lay open, but my pencil hadn't touched the page. Instead, I kept replaying last night. Sophie's steady voice, her eyes searching mine. I hated how much her disapproval hurt, how it made me question everything about myself. When I finally returned to the dorm, Sophie was gone, her desk tidy as always, a stark contrast to my chaos of paintbrushes and crumpled notes. A post-it stuck to my laptop read, "Meet me at the library 7 p.m. Please." My stomach twisted. I didn't want to face her, but I couldn't keep running either. At the library, Sophie was waiting in our usual spot by the windows, her laptop open to a news article she'd been researching for her journalism class. She looked up as I approached, her expression guarded but soft. "Thanks for coming," she said, closing her laptop. "I know you're mad." "Mad doesn't cover it," I snapped, sliding into the chair across from her. "You threw me under the bus, Sophie. Do you know what this could do to me? Suspension." Expulsion. Her jaw tightened but her voice stayed calm. I know. And I hate that it's come to this. But Emma, you're better than cheating. You're brilliant even if you don't see it. I couldn't watch you throw that away. Her words hit harder than I expected, stirring something warm and painful in my chest. She believed in me more than I believed in myself. But that only made her betrayal sting more. You should have trusted me to fix it, I said, my voice quieter now. Instead, you went behind my back. I didn't want to, she admitted, her eyes glistening. But I care about you, Emma. Too much to let you keep sabotaging yourself. The air between us shifted, heavy with unspoken things. I wanted to stay angry, to hold on to the hurt, but her sincerity was disarming. For the first time, I noticed how close we were sitting, how her hand rested inches from mine on the table. My pulse quickened and I pulled back, confused by the warmth spreading through me. I need time, I said, finally standing. I don't know what to think right now. She nodded, her expression unreadable. I'll be here when you're ready. As I walked away, the weight of her words lingered. I care about you. Did she mean as a friend or something more? And why did I want it to be more? By Thursday, the hearing loomed like a storm cloud. I'd spent the week dodging Sophie, crashing at a friend's place to avoid the dorm. But the more I avoided her, the more I missed her, her quiet laugh, her habit of humming while she studied, the way she made me feel seen. It was messing with my head, this tangle of anger and longing. I met with my advisor, who warned me the hearing could go either way. Plagiarism was a serious offense, and my record wasn't spotless. Be honest, she said. Own your mistake. It's your best shot. That night I returned to the dorm. Sophie was there, curled up on her bed with a book. She looked up surprised and I saw the faintest flicker of hope in her eyes. You're back, she said softly. Yeah, I muttered, dropping my bag. I can't keep running. We sat in silence for a moment, the tension thick. Then she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm sorry, Emma. I didn't want to hurt you. I couldn't let you keep lying to yourself. Her words broke something in me, and before I could stop myself I was crying. I'm scared, Soph, I admitted. I messed up and now I might lose everything. She crossed the room in an instant, pulling me into a hug. Her arms were warm, steady, and for the first time in days I felt safe. You won't lose everything, she whispered. You've got me. I pulled back, looking into her eyes, and something shifted. The air felt electric, charged with a truth I'd been too afraid to face. I didn't just need Sophie. I loved her. The realization hit me like a tidal wave, crashing through every wall I'd built around my heart. I loved Sophie, not just as my roommate or my best friend, but in a way that made my chest ache and my thoughts spiral. Standing there in her arms, her breath warm against my shoulder, I wanted to say it, to let the words spill out, but fear clamped them down. What if she didn't feel the same? What if this fragile electric thing between us was just in my head? I stepped back, my face burning, and mumbled something about needing to prep for the hearing. Sophie's eyes searched mine like she could sense the storm inside me, but she didn't push. You'll do great tomorrow, she said, her voice soft but certain. Just be you. Be me. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd spent so long pretending, faking confidence, cutting corners, hiding my insecurities, that I wasn't sure who me was anymore. But Sophie saw something worth believing in, and that scared me as much as it thrilled me. The hearing was a blur of stern faces and cold conference room air. I sat across from the academic committee, my hands trembling as I admitted to plagiarizing the paper. I was overwhelmed, I said, my voice shaking. I thought I could handle it, but I made a mistake. A big one. The words felt like glass in my throat, but Sophie's advice echoed in my head. Own it. So I did, laying bare my regret and promising to do better. The committee deliberated for what felt like forever, their murmurs a low hum behind closed doors. When they returned, the verdict was a semester's probation and a failing grade on the paper. No suspension. No expulsion. Relief flooded me, but it was bittersweet. I dodged the worst, but the shame lingered, and so did the question of what came next with Sophie. Back at the dorm, she was waiting, her laptop open to a half-finished article. How'd it go? she asked, her voice cautious but warm. Probation, I said, collapsing onto my bed. I'm still here at least. She smiled, a small genuine curve of her lips. I knew you'd be okay. I wanted to tell her then, to confess that she was the reason I'd gotten through it, that her belief in me had pulled me back from the edge. But the words stuck, tangled in fear. Instead I said, thanks for, pushing me to face it. Her smile faltered and she looked down, fiddling with a pen. I was so scared I'd lose you, she admitted. Not just as a roommate, but she trailed off and my heart leapt into my throat. Was she saying what I thought? Soph. I started, but my phone buzzed, shattering the moment. It was a text from my friend Mia, inviting me to a party to celebrate surviving the week. I hesitated, glancing at Sophie. Part of me wanted to stay to chase that unfinished sentence, but the other part, the part that always ran from hard truths, won out. I'm gonna head out for a bit, I said, grabbing my jacket. Her face fell, but she nodded. Have fun, she said, her voice tight. As I left, I felt her eyes on me, heavy with something unspoken. The party was loud, crowded, the kind of chaos I usually thrived in. But tonight it felt hollow. I sipped a lukewarm beer, dodging small talk, my mind stuck on Sophie. Mia noticed, pulling me aside. What's up with you? You're like a million miles away. I sighed, leaning against the wall. It's Sophie. She turned me in for cheating and now I don't know. I think I'm in love with her. Mia's eyes widened, then softened. Whoa, that's big. Have you told her? No, I admitted. I'm terrified she doesn't feel the same. And after everything, I don't even know if she'd trust me again. Mia squeezed my arm. You won't know until you try, Em. She's your best friend. She's worth the risk. Her words echoed Sophie's from earlier. I was so scared I'd lose you. I left the party early, my heart pounding with resolve. I had to tell her. No more running. When I got back to the dorm, Sophie was asleep, her book open across her chest. I watched her for a moment, her face peaceful in the moonlight, and my chest tightened. I couldn't lose her. Not as a friend, not as anything. The next morning, I woke to find Sophie already up, making coffee in our tiny kitchenette. You're up early, she said, handing me a mug. Her fingers brushed mine, sending a jolt through me. Yeah, couldn't sleep, I said, my voice shaky. Soph, can we talk? She nodded, sitting across from me. What's wrong? I took a deep breath, my heart hammering. I'm sorry. For cheating, for shutting you out, for everything. You were right to call me out. I needed it. But it's more than that. The words caught, but I pushed through. I think I'm in love with you. Her eyes widened, her mug frozen halfway to her lips. Silence stretched, agonizing, and I braced for rejection. Then she set her mug down, her hands trembling. Emma, she whispered. I've been in love with you for months. The world stopped. I stared at her, my mind reeling. What? She laughed, a nervous, beautiful sound. I didn't know how to tell you. I was scared you'd think I was crazy, or that it'd ruin everything. But when I saw you cheating, I couldn't stand the thought of you losing yourself. I reported you because I care, Emma. Because I love you. I crossed the room in 2 steps, pulling her into my arms. This time I didn't pull back. Her lips found mine, tentative at first, then fierce, like we'd both been holding our breath for too long. The kiss was everything, fire, relief, truth. When we finally parted, breathless, she rested her forehead against mine. We're a mess, aren't we? She said, laughing softly. Yeah, I said, grinning. But we're our mess. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind. Sophie and I navigated our new relationship, tentative but exhilarating. We still fought, about my procrastination, her perfectionism, but every argument ended with us closer, learning each other in ways we hadn't before. I started taking my studies seriously, inspired by her passion for truth. She loosened up, letting me drag her to art galleries and late-night food trucks. But not everyone was thrilled. My parents, conservative and distant, didn't know yet, and I dreaded the day they would. Sophie's family was more open, but she worried about her career, about being out in the competitive world of journalism. We faced whispers on campus, judgmental glances from people who didn't understand. It wasn't easy, but together we were unstoppable. One night, lying in her bed, our legs tangled under the blankets, I traced her jaw with my finger. "You saved me, you know," I said. "Not just from the hearing, but from myself." She smiled, kissing my fingertips. "You saved yourself, Emma. I just gave you a push." The first time Sophie and I went out as a couple, I felt like I was walking on air. We held hands at a small indie concert in downtown LA, the music pulsing around us, her laughter bright against the neon lights. But even in that moment, a shadow lingered: my parents. I hadn't told them about Sophie, about us, and the thought of their reaction twisted my stomach. They were old school, the kind of people who believed love followed a script. Boy meets girl, white picket fence, grandkids. I'd never fit that script even before Sophie, but now I was rewriting the whole damn story, and I wasn't sure I was brave enough to show them the pages. Sophie sensed my unease as we walked back to campus, her thumb brushing over my knuckles. "You okay?" she asked, her voice soft but probing, like she could see right through me. I sighed, kicking a pebble on the sidewalk. "Just thinking about my parents. They don't even know I'm, you know." I gestured vaguely, unable to say the word lesbian out loud yet. Felt too new, too raw. She squeezed my hand. "You don't have to tell them until you're ready. But when you are, I'll be there. Promise." Her words steadied me, but the fear didn't vanish. I wanted to be fearless like her, but I was still Emma, messy, uncertain, always one step away from screwing things up. The next day, I threw myself into my art history project, determined to prove I could do this without shortcuts. Sophie helped, quizzing me on Baroque techniques while we sprawled on the dorm floor, surrounded by textbooks and empty coffee cups. Her presence made the work feel lighter, like every brushstroke I described was a step toward redeeming myself. But redemption was a rocky road. My probation meant extra scrutiny, and my professor, Dr. Harris, wasn't cutting me any slack. "Your next paper needs to be impeccable," she warned, her tone sharp. "No mistakes, Emma." I nodded, swallowing the pressure, but Sophie's encouragement kept me going. "You've got this," she said, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. Her touch sent a shiver through me, and I wondered how I'd ever thought I could live without her. That night we cooked dinner together, well, tried to. Sophie's idea of cooking was microwaving instant noodles, but I insisted on making pasta from scratch. We ended up with flour on our faces and sauce splattered on the counter, laughing so hard we could barely breathe. When she kissed me, tasting of marinara and mischief, I felt like I'd found home. But the world outside our dorm wasn't as kind. A week later, I overheard a group of classmates whispering about us in the library. "Emma's dating her roommate? That's weird," one said, her voice dripping with judgment. I froze, my books clutched to my chest, heat creeping up my neck. Sophie, who'd been grabbing a coffee, saw my face and followed my gaze. Without a word, she walked over to the group, her chin high. "Got a problem?" she asked, her tone calm but cutting. The girls stammered, caught off guard, and mumbled apologies before scattering. Sophie turned to me, her eyes fierce. "Don't let them get to you," she said. "They don't know us." But they did get to me. Their words echoed my own fears, that I didn't belong in this new version of myself, that Sophie deserved someone stronger, someone who wasn't always fighting their own insecurities. That night I couldn't sleep. Sophie was out late working on a group project, and I lay in the dark scrolling through old photos on my phone. Us at the beach, us studying, us laughing. Each one made my chest ache, a reminder of how much she meant to me. But doubt crept in. What if this was too hard? What if I wasn't enough? When she got back, I was sitting on my bed, knees pulled to my chest. "Soph," I said, my voice small, "do you ever think maybe this is a mistake?" She stopped, her bag halfway to the floor. "What?" "Us," I said, the word breaking. "I'm a mess. You're you. What if I drag you down?" She crossed the room, kneeling in front of me. "Emma, you don't drag me down. You make me better. Braver." I was terrified to admit how I felt, but you gave me the courage to try. Her words cracked something open in me, and I pulled her close, burying my face in her shoulder. "I'm scared," I whispered. "I don't want to lose you." You won't, she said, her voice fierce. We're in this together. The next hurdle came sooner than I expected. My mom called, her voice chipper through the phone. We're coming to visit next weekend, she said. Your dad and I want to see how you're doing. Panic gripped me. I hadn't told them about Sophie, about the hearing, about any of it. Great. I managed, my voice tight. Can't wait. When I hung up, Sophie was watching me, her expression soft. Your parents? Yeah, I said, sinking onto the couch. They don't know about us. Or the plagiarism thing. I don't know how to tell them. She sat beside me, her hand finding mine. You don't have to do it alone. We'll figure it out. Her confidence gave me hope, but the fear lingered. My parents' visit was a ticking time bomb, and I wasn't sure I could defuse it. The week before my parents' visit passed in a blur of nerves and preparation. Sophie and I spent hours strategizing, practicing how I'd tell them about us. Just be honest, she said, her hand steady on mine. They love you. They'll come around. But her optimism couldn't drown out the dread pooling in my stomach. I threw myself into my art history paper, determined to prove I was more than my mistakes. Sophie stayed up with me, proofreading drafts and making us coffee at 2 a.m. Her presence was a lifeline, but every time I looked at her, I saw the conversation with my parents looming closer. The night before they arrived, we sat on the dorm floor, surrounded by takeout containers. What if they hate me? I said, picking at my low mane. What if they see us and I don't know, disown me? Sophie set her chopsticks down, her eyes serious. They won't. But even if they don't get it right away, you're not alone in this. I'm here, Emma. I leaned against her, her warmth grounding me. How are you so sure about everything? She laughed softly. I'm not. I'm terrified half the time. But you make it worth it. Her words carried me through the night, but by morning my nerves were frayed. My parents arrived at noon, their rental car pulling up outside our dorm. Mom hugged me tightly, her perfume familiar and overwhelming. Dad gave me a stiff nod, his eyes scanning the campus like he was sizing it up. We went to a diner off campus, the kind with sticky booths and greasy fries. Sophie came along, insisting it'd be easier with her there. I wasn't so sure, but I couldn't say no to her. She sat across from me, her calm presence a stark contrast to my racing heart. So Emma, Mom said, sipping her coffee, how's school? You haven't told us much lately. I swallowed, my throat dry. It's been a lot. Actually, there's something I need to tell you. I glanced at Sophie, who gave me a small nod. I got in trouble for plagiarism. I messed up and I'm on probation now. But I'm working hard to fix it. Dad's fork froze midair, his face tightening. Plagiarism? Emma, how could you? I know, I said, my voice small. I'm sorry. I let the pressure get to me, but I'm doing better now. Mom's eyes softened, but Dad shook his head. This isn't how we raised you. The word stung, but I pushed forward. There's something else, I said, my hands trembling under the table. Sophie's foot nudged mine, a silent anchor. I'm dating someone. Sophie. The diner went quiet, or maybe it was just my world narrowing to my parents' faces. Mom's smile faltered and Dad's jaw clenched. You're what? He said, his voice low. I'm in love with her, I said, the words stronger now. She's my best friend, and she makes me want to be better. Sophie reached for my hand, her fingers lacing with mine. Mom stared at our hands, her expression unreadable. Dad pushed his plate away. This is a lot to process, he said, his voice tight. We need time. The rest of the meal was strained, small talk filling the silence like static. When we said goodbye, Mom hugged me, but it felt different, hesitant. Dad just nodded and they drove off, leaving me hollow. Back at the dorm, I collapsed onto my bed, tears burning my eyes. Sophie sat beside me, her hand on my back. They'll come around, she said softly. They just need time. What if they don't? I whispered. What if they never accept this? Then you still have me, she said, her voice fierce. And Mia and your friends and everyone else who sees how amazing you are. I turned to her, her face blurred through my tears. I don't deserve you, I said. She smiled, brushing a tear from my cheek. Yes, you do. And I'm not going anywhere. The next few weeks were a balancing act. My parents didn't call and I didn't reach out, too raw to face their silence. But Sophie was my rock, pulling me through late-night study sessions and quiet moments of doubt. We grew closer, our relationship a bright spot in the chaos. She dragged me to her journalism events, and I showed her my favorite art galleries, each moment stitching us tighter together. But the campus wasn't always kind. A professor made a snide comment about distractions when he saw us together, and I heard more whispers in the halls. Each one chipped away at me, but Sophie stood tall, her hand in mine, daring anyone to challenge us. One night we went to a Queer Student Alliance meeting, my first time in a space like that. I was nervous, expecting judgment, but instead I found warmth, people who got it, who'd faced the same fears and fought the same battles. Sophie fit right in, her confidence infectious, and for the first time I felt like I belonged somewhere bigger than myself. As we walked home, stars bright above the campus, I stopped and kissed her, right there on the quad. "Thank you," I said, "for showing me I can do this." She grinned, pulling me close. "We're just getting started." Spring semester brought new challenges but also new hope. My probation was a constant weight, but I was acing my classes, fueled by Sophie's belief in me. We were inseparable now, our lives woven together in late-night talks and stolen kisses between lectures. Yet, the silence from my parents hung over me, a shadow I couldn't shake. One afternoon I got a text from Mom. "Can we talk? We're sorry for how we left things." My heart leapt but fear followed. Sophie saw my face and sat beside me. "You've got this," she said, squeezing my hand. "Whatever happens, I'm here." I called Mom, my stomach in knots. "We were shocked," she admitted, her voice soft. "We didn't know how to react. But we've been talking and we want to understand, Emma. We love you." Tears stung my eyes. "I love you too," I said. I need you to see Sophie for who she is to me." Dad got on the line, his voice gruff but softer than before. "We're trying, kid. It's new for us, but we don't want to lose you." It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. When I hung up, Sophie pulled me into a hug, her laughter muffled against my shoulder. "Told you they'd come around," she said. "Not all the way," I said, but I was smiling. But it's something. The campus wasn't always as forgiving. A group of students started a petition against inappropriate relationships in dorms, thinly veiled homophobia aimed at couples like us. Sophie, ever the journalist, dug into it, uncovering that the petition's leader had a history of targeting queer students. She wrote an op-ed for the campus paper, sharp and fearless, calling out the bigotry. The article went viral, sparking heated debates. Some praised her courage. Others left hateful comments online. I worried for her, but Sophie shrugged it off. "Truth matters," she said. "If I can make one person feel less alone, it's worth it." Her strength inspired me. I poured my energy into a new art project, a series of paintings about identity and love, raw and unfiltered. When I showed Sophie the first piece, a swirl of colors capturing the moment we kissed in the dorm, she teared up. "This is us," she whispered, tracing the canvas. But the backlash from her article grew. One night we found a hateful note slipped under our door. "Freaks don't belong here." My blood boiled, but Sophie stayed calm, tucking the note away like evidence. "We'll handle this," she said, her voice steady. She reported it to campus security, who promised to investigate, but the incident shook me. What if it gets worse? I asked, my voice trembling. "Then we face it together," she said, pulling me close. "They don't get to win." Her resolve gave me courage, but the fear lingered. I started noticing stares, whispers, the way some people avoided us. It made me hyper-aware of every touch, every glance we shared in public. Sophie noticed too, and one night, she took me to the beach, the waves crashing under a starlit sky. "Forget them," she said, her hands cupping my face. "This is about us. No one else." We kissed, the salt air cool against our skin, and for a moment the world faded away. As finals approached, the pressure mounted. Sophie was up for a journalism award, and I was finishing my art project for a gallery show. We were both stretched thin, but we made time for each other. Study dates, late-night walks, quiet moments that felt like promises. One evening we sat on the dorm roof, the Ella skyline glittering below. "What happens after graduation?" I asked, my voice small. "You'll be off chasing Pulitzer Prizes and I'll be what? Painting in some tiny studio." She laughed, nudging my shoulder. "You'll be a famous artist and I'll be your biggest fan. We'll figure it out, Emma. Together." Her certainty anchored me, but the future still felt like a blank canvas, full of possibility and fear. The gallery show was my moment to shine. My paintings lined the walls, each one a piece of my heart, colors and shapes that told the story of my struggle, my love, my redemption. Sophie stood beside me, her hand in mine as people milled around, murmuring about my work. I was nervous, but her presence kept me grounded. "You're incredible," she whispered, her eyes bright with pride. "They love it." I wasn't so sure, but when a professor bought one of my pieces, I nearly cried. It felt like proof that I was more than my mistakes, that I could create something real. Sophie squeezed my hand, and I knew I owed so much of this to her. But the high didn't last. That night we found another note under our door. This one worse: "You're not welcome here." Sophie's face hardened and she called campus security again, but I could see the toll it was taking. She was fearless, but she wasn't invincible. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice breaking. "This is because of me, isn't it?" "No," she said firmly. "This is because of them. They're scared of what they don't understand." We reported the note, and the university stepped up patrols, but the fear lingered. I started second-guessing every step, every public moment with Sophie. She noticed, pulling me aside one day. "Don't let them make you small," she said. "You're bigger than their hate." Her words lit a fire in me. I wasn't going to let fear win, not for me, not for us. Sophie's journalism award ceremony was the next big moment. She looked stunning in a navy dress, her confidence radiant as she accepted her plaque. I clapped until my hands hurt, my heart swelling with pride. But afterward, a classmate cornered her, his voice low but venomous. "Your article stirred up a lot of trouble," he said. "Maybe keep your personal life out of it next time." I stepped forward, my fists clenched, but Sophie put a hand on my arm. "It's fine," she said, her voice calm but sharp. "Truth isn't always comfortable." The guy walked away, but I could see the strain in her eyes. "You don't have to fight every battle," I said later, as we sat in a quiet cafe. "I know," she said, stirring her coffee. "But if I don't, who will?" I reached for her hand. "We will. Together." As graduation loomed, we started planning our future. Sophie got an internship offer from a major news outlet in New York, and I was accepted into a small artist residency in Brooklyn. The idea of moving across the country together was thrilling but terrifying. My parents were still warming up to us, and the thought of leaving everything familiar made my stomach churn. One night we sat on the beach, the same place we'd gone to escape the campus hate. "What if we're not ready?" I asked, my voice barely audible over the waves. Sophie turned to me, her eyes fierce. "We're ready. Maybe not for everything, but for this, for us." She pulled a small ring from her pocket, a simple silver band. "It's not a proposal," she said quickly, laughing. "Just a promise that we'll face whatever comes together." I took the ring, my hand shaking, and slipped it onto my finger. "I promise," I said, kissing her. The final weeks of college were a whirlwind of exams, packing, and goodbyes. My parents came to graduation, and to my surprise they hugged Sophie, their smiles tentative but genuine. "We're proud of you," Mom said to me, her eyes misty. "Both of you." It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. And as Sophie and I walked across the stage, our hands brushing as we collected our diplomas, I felt ready for whatever came next. New York was a shock to the system. Grit and noise and endless possibility. Our Brooklyn apartment was tiny, with creaky floors and a view of a brick wall, but it was ours. Sophie's internship kept her busy, her days filled with deadlines and interviews, while I spent mine painting in the residency studio, pouring my heart onto canvas. Every night we came home to each other, building a life from scratch. But the city wasn't always kind. Sophie's newsroom was cutthroat, and she faced subtle jabs about her identity. My art was critiqued harshly, my confidence shaken by rejections. Yet we held each other up, our promise ring a reminder of the strength we found together. One evening, I came home to find Sophie on the couch, her laptop open to a draft of an article about queer voices in media. "This one's personal," she said, her voice soft. "I want to tell our story." I hesitated, the old fear creeping in. What if it stirs up more hate? She took my hand, her eyes steady. "Then we face it. Like we always do." I nodded, my heart swelling. "Okay, let's tell the world." Her article was published a month later, raw and honest, weaving our journey, my cheating, her betrayal, our love, into a call for authenticity and courage. It went viral, shared across platforms, with messages pouring in from people who saw themselves in us. There were haters too, but their voices felt smaller now, drowned out by the love and support. My paintings started gaining traction too. A gallery in Manhattan offered me a solo show, and Sophie was there, cheering louder than anyone. As I stood in front of my work, her hand in mine, I realized how far we'd come. From a dorm room betrayal to this. A life built on truth, love, and resilience. Years later, we're still in New York, still fighting, still loving. My parents visit now, their acceptance growing with time. Sophie's career is soaring, her articles sparking change. My art hangs in galleries, each piece a testament to the woman who pushed me to be better. Looking back, I see the moment Sophie turned me in, not as a betrayal, but as a gift. She saw the person I could be, even when I couldn't. She challenged me, broke me open, and loved me through the pieces. And in that messy, painful journey, I found her, and myself. Our story isn't perfect. It's raw, real, full of scars and triumphs. But it's ours. And as I slip my hand into hers, the silver ring glinting in the light, I know one thing for sure. We're just getting started.